the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. Join us this month as we explore the interesting history of Junction Bridge that spans the Arkansas River between North Little Rock and Little Rock. This month, we are presenting the history of the Junction Bridge over the Arkansas River between the historic Argenta community of North Little Rock and the downtown historic core of Little Rock. Much of the research for this script is based on previous work done by Brian McDade, curator of collections at the Mosaic Templars Cultural Center in downtown Little Rock. The city of Little Rock was named after a geological formation found along the banks of the Arkansas River known as La Petite Roche, or the Little Rock. This name was given to an outcropping of rocks near a low landing area by early French explorers, including Jean-Baptiste Bernard de la Harpe, who was the namesake of the nearby current La Harpe Boulevard. The Little Rock was in contrast to the much larger Big Rock Bluff, found just a couple of miles up the river along the northern riverbank. The Big Rock Bluffs in North Little Rock were a large natural landmark for the area. The Native American tribes of the region used both the Big Rock and the Little Rock as prominent landmarks for travel through the region. Early settlers also referred to the Little Rock as the Point of Rocks. The plateau along the top of the Big Rock eventually became the home of the former Fort Logan H. Roots military base and is now home to the Tobin Healthcare Center of the Department of Veterans Affairs. A remnant of the namesake Little Rock Formation is still visible just beside the foot of the Junction Bridge in Riverfront Park in downtown Little Rock. The Central Arkansas region was home to the Quapaw people when the first European explorers reached the region in the early 1700s. Before the Quapaw living along the Arkansas River were forced to leave in 1824, there was a community of mixed Quapaw French families that lived in the area of what is now Little Rock, which inspired the name Quapaw Quarter for Little Rock's historic downtown neighborhoods. Early French explorers in the area referred to the small outcropping of rock along the south bank of the river as La Petite Roche, or the Little Rock, and the name appeared on maps of the area by 1800. The first immigrant settler near the Little Rock was William Lewis, who built a cabin along the river in 1812. Although he didn't stay in the area for long, he did file a claim on the land. A permanent settlement was founded in the spring of 1820 near the rock, with a post office established under the name Little Rock at the site by March of the same year. Soon, this new settlement drew the attention of land speculators, who recognized the value of the site as an up-and-coming trade and political center. These speculators soon staked dubious claims to the town, even renaming it Arkopolis, and started selling lots. Another added issue was the planned move of the territorial capital to Little Rock in June of 1821. The land claims were eventually settled, the town was renamed Little Rock, and the territorial capital was moved from Arkansas Post in the fall of 1821. Little Rock was officially incorporated as a town in 1831 and as a city in 1835. By 1850, Little Rock was home to over 2,000 residents and was an important economic, political, and civic hub for the region. The Arkansas River was the main transportation network for the area, and Little Rock was an ideal port for a wide swath of central Arkansas. The population of the city would explode from over 3,000 in 1860 to over 12,000 in 1870 and to over 38,000 by 1900. During the early settlement decades of the town of Little Rock, the only way to cross the Arkansas River was by ferry. Travelers and traders would arrive along the Arkansas River and would use the steamboats that plied the river to transport their goods and supplies. The first steamboat to travel up the Arkansas River to Little Rock was the Eagle, which arrived by March 16, 1822. Those wishing to cross the river would need to use the various ferry boats to transport themselves and any cargo. By the 1870s, various railroad lines across Arkansas allowed for faster and easier transportation, but all cargo and passengers still had to be ferried across the river at Little Rock. In 1873, the Bering Cross Bridge railroad bridge was started by the Cairo and Fulton Railroad. This wooden truss railroad bridge opened in late 1873. In 1877, a wooden highway deck was added above the tracks and operated as a toll bridge for the transport of people, wagon, and animals. The success of this elevated highway bridge soon prompted a local ferryman to build a pontoon bridge, also operated by toll, at the river level in competition. By the mid-1880s, the Bering Cross Bridge was in shambles due to deterioration. The Union Bridge Company of New York State was hired to rebuild it with steel camelback trusses, a new lower highway deck alongside the tracks, and new electric lights. It was reopened in January of 1886. This new bridge eventually fell victim to the flood of 1927, despite the railroad's attempts to safeguard the bridge by trying to ballast it with fully loaded coal cars. It was rebuilt after the flood and still operates, with some 1970s modifications, as the main railroad bridge across the Arkansas River today. As the Bering Cross Bridge was under constant use in the early 1880s, it became clear that another bridge was needed across the Arkansas River at Little Rock. During the early 1880s, the Little Rock, Mississippi River, and Texas Railroad partnered with the Little Rock and Fort Smith Railroad to complete a line of track stretching from the Gulf Coast to Indian Territory, now the state of Oklahoma. A new bridge at Little Rock was needed to achieve this goal. In 1883, the Little Rock Junction Railway and Bridge Company was formed. The first load of timber for the construction project on the new bridge arrived at the Little Rock on the Arkansas River on March 3, 1884. After the timber arrived, the construction workers shared a bottle of wine to toast the new bridge project. The newly formed bridge company hired Major Sickles, a consulting engineer, to oversee construction of the bridge, and soon preparations were made to start to build the piers in the Arkansas River. By April, construction workers started assembling the caissons, or large watertight chambers, that would be used to build the bridge's piers at intervals across the river. Interestingly, in newspaper reports of the time, it was noted that during the construction of the bridge's piers, at least 3 Arkansas toothpicks, or large knives, had been found on the riverbed. The first caisson was sunk into and under the river all the way to bedrock. The water inside the chamber was then pumped out, and the muddy river bottom was dredged using a large system of pressurized air pumps. This process was witnessed firsthand by an unidentified reporter for the Arkansas Gazette. He visited the bridge company office near the construction site, where he was provided with a full set of rubber overclothes, including long boots, pants, coat, and a rubber hat. He was then taken by flatboat to the caisson, where he saw the water and mud being pumped from the riverbed. The reporter was led onto the top of the iron caisson, and a worker soon emerged from a hatch, and the reporter descended into the dark confines of the metal cylinder in the middle of the river. After climbing down into a small compartment that was then pressurized, the reporter witnessed the system that allowed for water and mud to be pumped from the bottom of the river. The reporter then followed the workers into the larger chamber of the caisson, all the way to the bottom of what had been excavated, at a depth of 58 feet below the surface of the river. They ended up standing almost 6 stories from the surface, and over 20 feet below the surrounding riverbed, as they excavated toward bedrock. The men inside worked by candlelight to push mud toward pipes that would pull it out from the bottom of the caisson. After the reporter's journey to below the bottom of the river, the reporter returned to the surface and returned his rubber suit, likening it to a journey to the bottom of the sea. Once the workers reached bedrock at the bottom of each caisson, they began filling the negative space they had created with concrete, creating the structural piers for the bridge's superstructure. During the construction of the upper superstructure of the bridge, there were 2 major accidents that caused injury among the workers. In September of 1884, a boiler exploded at the construction site, injuring several workers. Also, in November of the same year, several workers were injured while assembling parts of the superstructure with a battering ram. Vibrations from the process of pounding in assembly bolts caused a supporting plank to fall, which was supporting a team of workers, who then fell onto a derrick below. Although a few workers escaped with only minor injuries, unfortunately, 1 worker later died due to injuries sustained in the fall. Construction on the Junction Bridge was completed on December 8, 1884. A test train was sent across the bridge early in the afternoon, followed by the ceremonial hammering in of the final golden spike by Miss Grimes, the wife of one of the construction contractors. Afterwards, there was a formal train crossing by an engine decorated with winter foliage, pulling 2 flat cars with railroad officials and special guests as passengers. After unloading the passengers in Argenta, the train was loaded with cotton bales, which were then transported back to Little Rock. This event was watched by hundreds of spectators who lined the north and south banks of the river. The original bridge included 4 full spans across the river, with an approach span at either end. The largest section was the span that rotated 90 degrees to allow for the passage of boats up and down the river. This pivoting pier, or swing bridge, was a common solution for railroad bridges at the time, having already been used at the Bering Cross Bridge just downriver. In January of 1885, floating ice in the Arkansas River caused the ferry services still working on the river to be suspended due to the hazardous conditions. This inspired the Junction Bridge Company to quickly add a floor to the bridge for pedestrian and public traffic. This service was operated as a toll bridge, with wagons costing 25 to 35 cents for a round trip. Also in January of 1885, an electrical generator, referred to at the time as a dynamo, was established on the bridge to provide electrical service so that the span could be illuminated at night for safety. The pedestrian and local traffic use of the bridge would only last until 1898. Afterwards, the bridge was used exclusively for railroad purposes. Although a portion of the point of rocks, known as the Little Rock, was used for the base for the approach and foundation for the new Junction Bridge, it soon became apparent that the nearby land was now much more valuable for commercial purposes. By early 1886, several legal proceedings had been initiated over the current ownership of the land surrounding the foot of the bridge. While most agreed that William E. Woodruff had originally owned the property as early as the 1840s, a snarled tale of sales, mortgages, liens, and auctions left the current ownership undecided. With the taking of the land for the bridge, this also meant that whoever was the legal owner of the property was due compensation from the railroad. By the 1890s, the ownership questions had been resolved, and in 1906 the bridge became part of the Missouri Pacific Railroad Company. In 1917, the Junction Bridge was again under renovation to provide for pedestrian and auto traffic across the river. This was due in large part to the increased need for vehicular capacity, as the traffic on the nearby Free Bridge needed to be diverted while it was repaired. The Free Bridge had opened in 1897 and would soon be replaced by a new Main Street Bridge. Broadway Bridge also allowed for more traffic over the river when it was completed in 1922. The Junction Bridge survived the flood of 1927 and served as the main railroad bridge for the Missouri Pacific's main line while the Bering Cross Bridge was rebuilt. In the 1960s, it was determined that the original swing span of the bridge, now over 75 years old, needed to be replaced in order to be compatible with the new McClellan-Kerr navigation project along the Arkansas River. This new river navigation project would allow for the passage of larger tugs and barges up and down the river with a new series of locks and dams, as well as provide additional flood protections and the bonus of promoting the development of recreational areas. As part of this new navigation project, the Junction Bridge's swing span was replaced with a new lift span, which provided more space for larger vessels traveling along the river. In 1983, Union Pacific took over control of much of the Missouri Pacific system, and the bridge changed ownership again. The bridge continued to be used for local commercial railroad customers until the late 1990s. In 1999, the bridge was given a new lease on life when Pulaski County and the cities of North Little Rock and Little Rock banded together to turn the structure into a pedestrian and bicycle bridge. The rehabilitation project, which cost $5.8 million, fixed the lift span at 38 feet above the river, added stairs and 2 glass-enclosed elevators, and renovated the deck of the entire span and the bridge approaches for pedestrian access. The newly renovated bridge was opened to the public on May 17, 2008. Today, the bridge and the little rock at its foot continue to be a symbol of the history of central Arkansas from its earliest settlement through the growth of the city and its industries during the 19th and 20th centuries. More information on the bridges that span the Arkansas River can be found at the Central Arkansas Library Encyclopedia of Arkansas online. Additional information on all of the sites listed in the National Register of Historic Places in Arkansas can be found on the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program's website at arkansaspreservation.com. For more information on upcoming tours, please check out our website at arkansaspreservation.com. Our website will have the most up-to-date information on tour dates and whether the tour will be in person or virtual. We also have information on our Facebook channel of our new programs and interesting facts about places across Arkansas with historic significance. Also check out our YouTube channel under Arkansas Preservation, where we have an archive of our old sandwiching and history tours, and we continue to release new content, including new videos on cemetery preservation. Our next sandwiching and history tour will be of the Winchester Auto Building in downtown Little Rock. This tour will take place as a virtual tour, premiering on our Facebook page on Friday, July 10th at noon. Please note, this is a week after our usual First Friday date due to the July 4th holiday. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual tour of Junction Bridge over the Arkansas River. We hope that you and your loved ones continue to stay safe and healthy.